He said, وَمَنْ تَرَكَ الصَّلَاةَ فَقَدْ كَفَرَ. Whoever leaves the prayer has disbelieved. Now, the question here is, why does this come in a book of Aqeedah? Because isn't this a fiqh matter? I mean, okay, even ridda, even apostasy is a fiqh matter, right? Like it's mas'ala min masail al-fiqh, al-furu' al-fiqhiyya. Why bring it here in the book of Aqeedah? Because what he's talking about here is mas'alatu takfir. He's not talking about the salah in itself. He's talking about under which condition can you declare someone to be out of Islam. Does that make sense? Does it make sense that why it's not a fiqh issue he's talking about here? As for the issue of salah and who leaves it, it's a fiqh issue. But here he's talking about under what basis can I say to someone they're not a Muslim? And the view of Imam Ahmad, in one riwayah from him, is that if the person doesn't pray, then that person can be declared to be not a Muslim. There are other situations also which everyone agreed upon. So for example, istihlal. Istihlal is to declare halal what Allah declared haram. So someone says, I don't have to pray. All of the madahib al-arba agreed on that. There was no ikhtilaf on the issue. That if someone says, I don't have to pray, there is no salah for me, or there is no salah for the Muslims. They declared halal what Allah made haram. Likewise, i'rad, kufr i'rad. The person just turns away from the whole religion. And for example, the person says, I don't, and he doesn't pray, doesn't fast, doesn't give zakah, doesn't have any connection to the religion at all. But the ikhtilaf came on the one who is connected to the religion but doesn't pray the 5 daily prayers. And Imam Ahmad, he took the view that that person left the religion of Islam, and this is the stronger view, no doubt. It's the one that the majority of the evidences support. مَا سَلَكَكُمْ فِي سَقَرْ قَالُوا لَمْ نَكُمْ مِنَ الْمُصَلِّينَ. What put you into the fire? They said, we were not for the people who prayed. فَخَالَفَ مِنْ بَعْدِهِمْ خَلْفٌ أَضَاعُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَاتَّبَعُوا الشَّهَوَاتِ فَسَوْفَ يَلْقَوْنَ غَيًّا. There came after them a group of people who stopped the prayer and they followed their desires, they will be put into Jahannam. And so on. From the evidences, from the beliefs of the Sahaba and elsewhere, that seems to suggest that the one who leaves the salah leaves the religion of Islam. وَلَيْسَ مِنَ الْأَعْمَالِ شَيْءٌ تَرْكُهُ كُفْرٌ إِلَّا الصَّلَاةِ. And this is only for the salah. Everything else, if it's from istihlal, like declaring it to be halal, that's different. Or i'rad, the person doesn't do anything in Islam. But as for just a person, for example, says, I don't fast Ramadan, we don't declare them to be out of Islam. If they believe you should fast, and we should fast Ramadan, but I'm weak, I don't fast Ramadan, we don't declare them out of Islam. But in the view of Imam Ahmad, the prayer, yes, if the person says, I believe we should pray, but I don't pray, then in the view of Imam Ahmad, they left the religion of Islam. And this is, wallahi, in my view, is the strongest view. Then Imam Ahmad, he mentions that the best of this ummah, after the Prophet ﷺ, is Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, then Umar ibn al-Khattab, and Uthman ibn Affan. And these people should be put ahead like the companions used to put them ahead, and they didn't differ in this. Then after them, the people who the Prophet ﷺ left as the shura, yani Ali ibn Abi Talib, yani the people who they were, yani the people who were in the time when Umar passed away, that Umar had chosen to decide who will be next, and they are Ali ibn Abi Talib and Talha and Zubayr and Abdul Rahman ibn Auf and Sa'd. And all of them were suited to be the Khalifa, and all of them are described as an Imam. And he said the hadith of Ibn Umar, كنا نعد ورسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم حي وأصحابه متوافرون أبو بكر ثم عمر ثم عثمان ثم نسكت. He said when the Prophet ﷺ was alive and his Sahaba were all around, we used to say the best is Abu Bakr, then Umar, then Uthman, then we would be quiet. However, the narrations about Ali ibn Abi Talib, they are authentic. So there is no harm in saying Abu Bakr and Umar and Uthman and Ali. And the narrations came like that, and they came stopping at Uthman. But the question is, what is the the position of a person who preferred Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu over Uthman without hating Uthman. And he loves Uthman and he loves Abu Bakr and Umar, all of the Sahaba. But he himself said, I just believe that Ali was better than Uthman. We say that the evidences clearly suggest that Uthman was better, but that this doesn't make him necessarily, and it doesn't, especially in the early days of Islam, it doesn't take him outside of the Sunnah if he took what evidences that he had and he loves all of the Sahaba, but he made a mistake in this issue. We say akhta, he made a mistake. But we don't say yani Shi'i or something like that, or mubtadi'. If he made that mistake, because that's what reached him from the narrations according to what he knew, and he loved all of the Sahaba and spoke about all of them with good, but he made a mistake in the issue between Ali and Uthman. As for if he preferred Ali over Umar or over Abu Bakr, then this is tashayyu'. There is fihi tashayyu'. There is some Shi'ism in that person, even if he loved Abu Bakr. Even if he loved Abu Bakr. And as for if he insulted the Sahaba or disliked them, then this is the tashayyu' that became well known after that. He said, then after them the people of Badr, and then after them the people of the Badr from the Ansar. First of all the Muhajirin, then the Ansar. Then the people who came for the Hijrah, and they came early, one after the other. Then after this, the people, the generation that was sent after them. The generation after the Sahaba. So he's giving the order of the Sahaba in virtue. He said the best are the people of Badr, because there's narrations that say the people of Badr are the best. So after that comes the people of Badr, then after that, first the Muhajirin, then the Ansar, then after that the people who, as they came to the Hijrah one by one, as they came to Islam one by one, and after the Sahaba, who comes? The generation after them. And as for who the Sahaba are, Imam Ahmad said, كل من صاحبه سنة أو شهرا أو يوما أو ساعة أو رآه فهو من أصحابه له من الصحبة على قدر ما صاحبه. He said, everyone who went with the Prophet ﷺ for 1 year, or 1 month, or 1 day, or 1 hour, or saw him, he's from the companions. Even though he will have companionship as much as he saw. So the one who spent 10 years is different from the one who spent 1 hour. But all of them are considered from the Sahaba radiyallahu anhum. And we're just reading summarized now, so we want to cover the points, but we're not going to cover every last word, but as much as what we can, just so we get a feel for it. He said, وَالسَّمْءُ وَالطَّاعَةُ لِلْأَئِمَّةِ وَأَمِيرِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ الْبَرِّ وَالْفَاجِرِ ومن ولي الخلافة واجتمع الناس عليه ورضوا به ومن عليهم بالسيف حتى صار خليفة وسمي أمير المؤمنين. He now goes on to issues of rulership. Didn't we say that rulership is going to come in there? Why did we say rulership is going to come in there? Because of the Khawarij. He said, obedience, hearing and obeying the leaders of the Muslims and the general leader, whether he is a governor or whether he is the general leader, whether he is a good person or whether he's a tyrant. Whoever gets control of the Muslims and the people come around them, and whoever fights against them with the sword until he becomes the Khalifa, all of them are the same. They deserve obedience. So there's an issue, somebody might get confused. They might say, okay, we agree, if every Muslim agrees that the Khalifa and everything, they all agree to it, we understand. But what would happen if somebody, a tyrant, fights against the people until he kills some of them and he becomes the leader? He said, even in this situation, the Sunnah tells us that once they have become the leader, you have to obey them. Obey them in what? In what is not disobedience to Allah. So if they tell you to drink alcohol, do you drink it? No. But what they tell you which is not disobedience to Allah, لا طاعة لمخلوق في معصية الخالق. You can't obey creation if it means disobeying Allah. Then he mentioned 4 points which are related to this. He said that you will fight with them, alongside them. even if they are good or if they're a tyrant. Meaning when they go to fight a battle on behalf of the Muslims, you don't say, oh, he's not a good person, I'm not going to go with him. Or I don't like his views, I'm not going to go with him. Even the people of bid'ah, this happened when the Mongol invasion came to the Muslim lands. Some of the leaders at that time were not upon the Sunnah, but the scholars upon the Sunnah went with them and fought with them alongside them in the Muslim army, even though they were not upon the Sunnah. Because in this issue, it doesn't matter whether they are righteous or wicked. If they are going for a valid reason on behalf of the Muslim nation, you go with them even if they are not good people. And likewise, the giving out of the war booty, and likewise giving them the zakah, and likewise the Jumu'ah behind them. He said all of these, it doesn't matter whether they are good people or bad people. Even if they are bad people, even if they are fujjar, it doesn't matter. We still stay behind them, we pray Jumu'ah in front of them. We don't repeat the Jumu'ah as long as we consider them to be part of the Muslims. We don't repeat the Jumu'ah behind them. We attend the Jumu'ah with them, we pray behind them, we fight alongside them, we give them our zakah, even if they are wicked, even if they are wicked people. He said, if someone doesn't pray behind them, if he doesn't pray behind them, and he is a person who, and he leaves the salah behind them, this person, he said, he's not from the people of the Sunnah if he doesn't pray behind them. And from this is the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, أُوصِيكُم بِالسَّمْعِ وَالطَّاعَةِ وَإِن تَأَمَّرَ عَلَيْكُمْ عَبْدٌ حَبَشِي. This hadith is important. The Prophet ﷺ said, I command you to hear and obey your ruler even if he is an Abyssinian slave. Why did he mention an Abyssinian slave? I want you to give me 2 reasons why he mentioned an Abyssinian slave.
People look down upon him.
Very good. The first reason. The Quraysh looked down, like a slave, an Abyssinian slave in charge of the noble people of Quraysh. And he's giving an example that Quraysh found it like very hard to bear. Quraysh were the top of the tree, right? In terms of their lineage and their rulership and everything. And he says to them, even if an Abyssinian slave was in charge of you. And there's another benefit we can take from this. The second thing is that here he mentions a ruler who is not from Quraysh. So someone might say, okay, we obey a bad ruler, but as long as he's from Quraysh. Because the Prophet ﷺ said, Al-Khilafatu Quraysh. Khilafah belongs with Quraysh. So he said, okay, even if he is not from Quraysh, still you have to obey him. Even if he's an abd, and an abd should not be in charge of the Muslims, right? Why do they say that a slave should not be in charge of the Muslims? We're not talking about a freed slave. A slave who is still in slavery. Why can they not be in charge of the Muslims? Go on, good. Excellent, because they don't have freedom. They're not free to decide what's right and wrong on their side, and they can have influence on them from somebody else. Yes, if they're freed slave, they can be in charge of the Muslims as a governor, as happened many times. Many of the great scholars of Islam were freed from slavery. Many great scholars of Islam. Many great scholars of Hadith were freed from slavery. Many great rulers and governors and so on. But in terms of being in charge of someone while still being in slavery, no, because that person now is under the influence of someone else. So the Prophet ﷺ gave the furthest away example. The example that is the most impossible to imagine. And he said, even then you have to obey them. Even if they are tyrants. And that can happen, right? We're not living in the time of Umar bin Abdul Aziz. We're not living in the time of everyone is righteous and noble, and the imams and the rulers are just such righteous, good people. We're not living in that time. Muslims have not lived in that time for a very long time. A long, long time. And we're not talking about individuals, but in general, the Muslim Ummah has not lived in that time for a long time. So this is a practical matter. we are going to find ourselves in countries and situations where the person responsible for us is not the best Muslim. But Islam tells us how to behave. Why? Because this is what preserves the safety and security of the Muslims, and it is what stops bloodshed, and it is what brings the Muslims, keeps the strength of the Muslims together. As for the Khawarij, remember, they are so outwardly righteous. The Khawarij, from the outside, you'll be embarrassed of their prayer in comparison with your prayer. If you saw them pray, the Prophet ﷺ, he told us, you will look down on your prayer compared to them. The Sahaba would say, my prayer is not as good as this person. They used to spend the night reciting the Quran and dua. The person who murdered Ali ibn Abi Talib, that's how he spent his night. He spent his night in prayer and Quran and dua, and then in the morning he murdered Ali ibn Abi Talib. That shows you that it's not the outward righteousness, but Islam put a system in place, an aqeedah in place, that we follow that system and we know it's going to produce the right result.